The deadliest curses are not spoken in anger, they are whispered in grief. The drums had stopped. The sun dipped low behind the baobab trees. And in the middle of the Oju village square, a woman screamed. Her hands clutched her belly, swollen like a gourd about to split. She staggered backward, foaming at the mouth. Children fled. Mothers covered their babies' eyes. And then, snakes, dozens, slithering, wet, hissing. From inside her body they crawled out. One by one. Old Mama Taif dropped her calabash of oil. Men gasped. Even the goats fled. Everyone knew what had happened. The curse had worked. But only a few knew why. And only one person had betrayed the witch lady. 1 month earlier, the village of Oju sat quietly between the hills of Ifoda and the river Oten. A place where yam festivals were loud, greetings were long, and secrets were buried deeper than the ancestral wells. It was a place of stories. But no story was whispered more cautiously than that of Ezenwa, the old witch woman who lived beyond the banana grove. They said she never aged. They said her eyes saw the dead. They said she could curse a man with just a name. But they also said she was once a healer. A wise woman. That was before the incident. Before her daughter disappeared. Before she stopped attending village gatherings. Before she stopped speaking to anyone, except one girl. Ba Chioma. Chioma was 23. Tall, strong, with a gap-toothed smile and a mouth sharper than a cassava grater. She sold roasted maize at the market and knew how to charm coins out of even the stingiest palm wine drinker. And somehow she was the only one Ezenwa allowed into her home. While others feared the old witch, Chioma brought her kola nuts and red cloth. She rubbed her back when the pain came. She helped fetch herbs from the river cliffs. Ezenwa is just old, Chioma would tell the villagers. She's not dangerous. She's lonely. But deep inside, Chioma had her own reason. Gold. Not the physical kind, but the knowledge Ezenwa held. Ancient secrets about roots that could poison quietly. Spells that could make a rival barren. Potions that could make a man mad with love, or lust. And Chioma wanted them all. Her beauty had drawn men. Her maize had earned her coins. But it wasn't enough. She wanted power. She wanted to be feared. So she played the obedient daughter. She listened. She studied. She waited. And when Ezenwa finally handed her the red gourd of shadows, Chioma bowed respectfully. But her eyes burned with hunger. This gourd, Ezenwa whispered, can only be used once. It must be returned to the earth afterward. Do not, ever, misuse it. Chioma nodded. I swear on my ancestors. But she lied. A week later the village was buzzing. Chioma had cursed Adiku, the wife of the wealthy trader Ogugwa. People said Adiku had gone blind overnight after touching Chioma's maize. They said her belly shrank the next day. That she coughed up feathers. Chioma denied it, of course. I am a simple maize seller, she laughed. But everyone knew. Even the wind knew. And Ezenwa she knew too. She confronted Chioma under the irako tree that grew near the river. You opened the gourd, didn't you? Her voice was like dry leaves. Chioma stood firm. You gave it to me. I trusted you. You used me. Just like you used your daughter until she vanished. Ezenwa's lips trembled. That was when Chioma went too far. You're no witch, she spat. You're just an old fool who smells like ash. She turned to leave. And as she walked away, Ezenwa didn't shout. She didn't curse. She only said softly, snakes do not crawl without warning. But when they come, they leave nothing behind. Chioma's belly began to swell 3 days later. At first she thought it was pregnancy. But there was no man. Then came the hissing in her sleep. Then the dreams. Then the pain. When she tried to eat, her throat burned. When she drank water, it turned to dust in her mouth. The villagers grew quiet around her. Even her closest friend, Adaora, stopped visiting. By the end of the week, Chioma looked 9 months pregnant. She cried, screamed, begged the elders. They offered palm oil, prayers, and drumming circles. But it was too late. She had betrayed the one woman who had shown her trust. The one woman who had once called her daughter. And so, on that dreadful morning, as the market began to stir, Chioma's body convulsed in the village square. As her neighbors watched in horror, the curse came alive. Snakes. Real ones. Hissing, wet, cold, sliding from her womb and mouth. Some say she died screaming. Others say she was silent, tears streaming down her face. But everyone agrees on one thing. She was never buried. The village feared what might return from the earth. So they burned her remains. And scattered the ashes across the hills. Meanwhile, in the silence of her hut, Izenwa lit a small fire. She placed a single cowrie shell on her daughter's grave, and whispered, "She has paid." The winds shifted in Oju village. They carried the smell of burnt ash, dried blood, and something else: fear. Ever since the snakes crawled out of Chioma's belly, no one walked near the market square at night. Children crossed themselves when they passed the old Irako tree, and whispers of Izenwa's wrath grew louder in every palm wine corner. But not everyone was afraid. Not everyone believed in curses. Ogugwa, the palm oil merchant from Iken, returned to Oju with gold-lined slippers and arrogance thicker than yam porridge. He had once been Chioma's secret lover, though he would never admit it now. When he heard of her death, he spat. Foolish girl. Played with fire and got burned. His wife Adiku, now half-blind and barren from Chioma's alleged curse, sat silently on the veranda. Witchcraft is for fools and cowards, Ogugwa announced to the elders. Let the dead stay dead. Let us forget. But some wounds do not forget, and some fires never die. That night, Ogugwa's compound echoed with the screams of goats. One by one they died, bellies swollen, tongues out, eyes wide. Poison, the village healer said. But Mama Taif only looked toward the banana grove, toward Izenwa's hut. She has started again, she whispered. Izenwa had not left her compound in weeks. She only emerged to fetch firewood, speaking to no one. But her eyes, they glowed like storm clouds ready to split. The villagers believed she had returned to the old ways, to the deep magic passed from mother to daughter. And they were right. Inside her hut, Izenwa sat before the ancestral bowl. It glowed with blood and ink, painted with the symbols of vengeance. She poured ground kola, cowrie shells, and strands of hair into the bowl. Let no betrayal go unpunished. Let every liar taste the bile of their tongue. Let the innocent cry out, and the guilty rot inside their skins. She wasn't just cursing one girl anymore. She was preparing for all of them. On the fourth night, Adiku came crawling. Literally. Her legs refused to move properly. Her eyes leaked blood instead of tears. She dragged herself through the dusty path to Izenwa's doorstep. I didn't know, she whispered. I didn't know Chioma would use the gourd on me. Izenwa looked at her, not with rage, but with sadness. Did you not spread rumors about my daughter? Did you not spit at my door when the rain stopped? Did you not laugh when they dragged her body from the river? Adiku shook violently. Forgive me. Izenwa leaned closer, her face calm. There is no forgiveness in this land anymore. Only balance. She placed a kola nut in Adiku's hand. Eat this. If your heart is clean, you will sleep. If not, you will see the truth. Adiku chewed, and fell into a deep, fevered dream. In her dream, she stood on a cliff. Below, Chioma's body floated in the river, bloated, broken, and cold. Behind her, she heard laughing. Dozens of voices. The village women, dressed in funeral wrappers. Dancing. Mocking. And then, a girl emerged from the river. But it wasn't Chioma. It was Kayamika, Izenwa's daughter. Adiku froze. She remembered. Years ago, she and the other market women had accused Kayamika of sleeping with the chief's son. They tied her, beat her, called her a shawo, and threw her into the Oten River to wash her sins. Kayamika never returned. The truth burned Adiku's stomach like hot pepper. She woke up screaming. And by dawn she was dead. Tongue swollen. Eyes rolled back. With Adiku's death, panic returned. Some elders called for Izenwa to be banished. She is killing the people. But others said, no. The ones dying are the ones with secrets. Families argued. Factions formed. Even the Oba, the village chief, hesitated. He summoned Izenwa privately. What is it you want, old one? He asked. Her answer chilled the air. I want justice. For my daughter. For the girl they called a witch. For the innocent they buried in silence. The Oba tried to reason. Let the past stay buried. Izenwa leaned closer. I buried my daughter with my own hands. If the past stays buried, it rots. And when it rots, it stinks. She turned and left. The Oba sat still for a long time, before calling for the old scrolls. There was only one path now. A cleansing. The elders agreed. If Izenwa would not stop, they would call the priests of Asia, the river gods, to perform a ritual. They would cleanse the land, break the curse, and cast her out. But something strange happened. When they arrived with drums and fire, they found Izenwa already waiting. She stood outside her hut, wearing white, surrounded by snakes. Real snakes. Dozens. They didn't bite. They didn't hiss. They just circled her. She looked at the priest, then at the crowd. Her voice rose like thunder. Do you see what you call evil? Do you see what you feared? I am not your curse. I am your mirror. She stepped forward. The snakes followed. And as she passed, the ground beneath her cracked open. The ground split open where Izenwa walked. Not violently. Not with fire or thunder. But slowly, like a wound peeling back to expose rot. The villagers stood in silence. Not one dared move. Children clung to their mothers. The priests of Asia, known for their courage and rituals, stepped back, uncertain. And the snakes? They slithered into the crack like they belonged there. Like they had returned home. 3 days passed after Izenwa's march through the village. And then strange things began to happen. The yams began to rot before harvest. Chickens laid eggs filled with blood. A baby was born without a cry, and died before sunrise. Mama Taif said the earth was angry. But Papa Gozi, the oldest hunter, said softly, "No, not angry. Awake." He limped to the shrine one morning and spat on the stones. "You let them kill Kayamika. You let the liars live fat and full. Now you want to punish us for the screams we buried." And that very night he disappeared. His blood was found near the old Irako tree. His eyes missing. It was at this moment, as fear spread through the village like wildfire, that a stranger arrived. A tall, lean man in a deep blue wrapper, with beads around his wrists and a scar across his nose. He carried a wooden staff carved with the heads of birds and beasts. His name was Aniudo, and he claimed to be a Dibia, a seer of truth from the northern river clans. But he said one thing that made the Oba hesitate. "I was the one who trained Izenwa, before she was exiled from my clan." Gasp. Whispers. The Oba narrowed his eyes. "She told us she was from the east." Aniudo smiled faintly. "She told you what you could survive." That night, under the canopy of palm leaves and moonlight, Aniudo told the elders the real story. Years ago Izenwa had a daughter. Yes, but also a gift. A powerful gift that allowed her to hear the voices beneath the soil. Not spirits, no. But something older. She could hear memory in wood. Pain in water. She could feel betrayal before it happened. She had tried to suppress it. Tried to live like a normal woman. But the land called to her too loudly. When her daughter Kayamika was killed, something inside her broke open. "She no longer just listens to the land," Aniudo whispered. "She speaks through it." The Oba leaned forward. "Can she be stopped?" Aniudo looked down. "I don't know. But if she cannot, the land will consume us all." That same night, another figure approached Izenwa's hut. Not an elder. Not a priest. But a child. A young girl named Uju, no more than 9 years old, with wide eyes and a limp. She had lost her mother to fever. Her father had joined those mocking Izenwa years ago. She knelt in front of the witch's hut and whispered, "Make me strong. I'm tired of crying." Izenwa opened the door. Looked at her. And instead of laughing, instead of turning her away, she wept. While the adults panicked and debated and cursed the wind, something else was stirring in Oju village. The children. They began to gather secretly. At night. In the broken yam fields. Near the cracked earth. They drew symbols in the soil. Chanted old songs. "Chioma is not gone," one whispered. "She watches us from the trees," another said. Izenwa had not just cursed the land. She had planted something. Not poison. Not fire. But memory. And now it was growing. Desperate, the Oba declared a village-wide festival of cleansing. There would be dances, blood offerings, and a final ritual where every family would spill goat blood on the soil to beg forgiveness. But the morning of the festival, the goats were gone. All of them. Vanish. Their hoofprints led to the river, and stopped at the water's edge. Then the river itself changed. It turned thick, red, like someone had poured palm oil into its heart. Children cried. Elders fainted. And from the other side of the water, standing beneath the old fig tree, Izenwa watched. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't laughing. She was simply waiting. The red river ran thick for 7 days. No fish swam. No heron flew. No drums were beaten. It was as if the land itself held its breath, waiting for something unspeakable to arrive. But it had already arrived. It was already growing. Not in the forest. Not in the sky. In her belly. Izenwa no longer spoke much. She would sit alone on the edge of her compound, wrapped in a wrapper of black bark cloth, eyes glazed, ears twitching. There was a sound, a low hissing, inside her. Not just breath. Not wind. It was something alive. Something moving. It curled in her womb like a second child, except she had no child. Not anymore. Only vengeance. Word of Ezenwa's condition spread beyond Oju. An old midwife named Mama Neka heard it while selling pepper in a neighboring village. Her hands froze. She had helped deliver Kayamika. She remembered the quiet hum that had filled the room that night. The way Ezenwa bled, and yet smiled. And she remembered what she saw before cutting the umbilical cord. Not a second child. Not a twin. But a shadow curled beneath Ezenwa's placenta with faint serpent-like features. Mama Neka had told no one. Not even her husband. But now she understood. On the third night of the Red River, a sound rose from the forest. A drumbeat. Slow. Steady. But it came from no drummer. It echoed from beneath the ground, near the burial pit of Kayamika. And every time it beat, Ezenwa clutched her belly and moaned. Not in pain. In rhythm. The villagers heard it. And they knew. This was no longer just a curse. It was a birth. In a small hut near the palm grove, Oju, the girl who had begged Ezenwa for strength, began to change. Her limp vanished. Her voice deepened. She spoke to snakes and they listened. Her dreams were full of whispers. Some called her daughter of silence. Others called her keeper of vengeance. One night, her father tried to strike her for disobedience. She stared at him. Didn't flinch. And he dropped dead before he could lift his hand. Villagers found him the next morning, his mouth filled with sand. The seer Anuyuru gathered the Oba and the elders. She is not just a woman anymore, he said. She is a vessel. A walking altar. A womb for something ancient. The Oba asked, what grows inside her? Anuyuru's eyes filled with dread. Not snakes. Not demons. Memory. The memory of every pain, every injustice, every scream the land swallowed in silence. He took a clay bowl, poured white chalk into it and pressed his palm to the floor. Tomorrow it will be born. The Oba stood. Then we end her tonight. Under the veil of moonlight the warriors came. Armed with spears, torches and silence. They crept through the trees toward Ezenwa's hut. But they found no door. No roof. No walls. Only a circle of ash. And in the center Ezenwa stood. Naked. Glowing. Pregnant. Her stomach moved like water under a storm. One warrior threw a spear. It stopped midair. Hung. Froze. Then turned. And flew back into his throat. He died gasping. The rest ran. Only one remained. Mama Neka. Mama Neka approached slowly. She wore no charms. Carried no weapon. Only a gourd of water and a whisper of a lullaby. Ezenwa turned her head. And for the first time in years she smiled. Neka. You remember. I remember, said the old midwife, voice trembling. The second womb. The shadow child. Ezenwa looked down at her stomach. It is not a child. It is her. Kayamika. What they denied her, I will return. Mama Neka's eyes filled. Ezenwa, what you carry will poison everything. No, Ezenwa whispered, placing a hand over her belly. It will remember everything. That night the earth shook. Not like thunder. Not like an earthquake. It was alive. The old burial grounds split open. Bones surfaced. Snakes rose from the graves. Even the river, red and thick, flowed backwards. In the center of it all, Ezenwa screamed. Her legs gave way. Her hands clawed the dirt. She was giving birth. Not to a child. Not to snakes. But to every memory the village tried to bury. And the first thing to come out was not flesh. Was a voice. A girl's voice. One word. Why? The night cracked open like an old calabash. From Ezenwa's womb came no blood. No baby's cry. No heartbeat. Only voices. Hundreds. Thousands. Girls who were never believed. Women who were buried without names. Mothers who screamed into rivers. Daughters who vanished into smoke. The villagers fell to their knees, clutching their ears. The sky turned dark red. The wind howled. And the snakes, dozens, hundreds, crawled from Ezenwa's stomach, slithering with purpose. They were not biting. They were remembering. Long ago, Oju was not silent. It was once a place of women's laughter, moonlight stories, shared yams and open hearts. But then, silence crept in. The kind of silence that follows pain. Girls were told, forget it. Women were told, obey your husband. Mothers were told, keep your shame quiet. So they did. Until now. Now, every scream they swallowed had taken form. And those screams were crawling through the village, scaling walls, slipping under doors. Right back into the homes where the pain began. Oba Iola summoned the elders. He was pale. Eyes sunken. Fingers trembling. The snakes have not bitten anyone, he said. But they are watching us. They follow our sons. They rest in our chairs. Elder Kalu asked, "Why haven't they killed us?" Anuyudo, the seer, entered the gathering, his feet muddy, eyes wide. "Because death is too kind," he said. "They want us to see, to remember, to feel." "To feel what?" another elder asked. Anuyudo's voice dropped. "The weight of what we ignored." By dawn, Izenwa lay on the riverbank, still breathing, still bleeding. But her eyes were not her own anymore. They glowed yellow, serpent-like. And beside her stood a single black cobra, thicker than a man's arm, eyes wet with sadness. From its mouth came a voice, Kayamika's voice. "I was your daughter," she said. "I cried but no one listened. I begged but no one helped." The Oba stepped forward. "You are not real. You are a ghost." "No," the snake hissed. "I am what happens when silence grows teeth." From the shadows the girl Uju appeared, no longer limping. She wore a gown of raffia and ash. Snakes coiled around her arms like bracelets. Her hair was braided with bones. She stood before the elders. "I asked for strength," she said. "Izenwa gave me pain instead. But pain is strength. She gave me the memory of every girl you ignored." Uju raised her arms. And behind her, the snakes hissed in rhythm. The villagers gasped. They weren't just snakes. They were the souls of forgotten women, taking form through Izenwa's womb, through Uju's words, through the land itself. Mama Neka stood in the center of the village. She held a drum. She beat it once. The snakes froze. The villagers listened. "I will not protect you anymore," she said to the elders. "You are not leaders. You are cowards." Oba Ayula fell to his knees. "What do you want from us?" Uju stepped forward. "Not revenge. Recognition. Restoration. And remembrance." The people watched as Uju turned toward Izenwa, who lay dying. The girl kneeled and kissed her forehead. "You gave birth to the truth." Izenwa's lips moved. She whispered one word, "Kayamika," and then, she was gone. Days later, the Red River turned clear. Fish returned. Birds sang. The snakes vanished, but not completely. One would be seen coiled beneath the chief's stool. Another sleeping on a judge's roof. Another wrapped around a young girl's mirror. They didn't bite. They reminded. In time, the village began to change. Laws were made. Girls were heard. Mothers were protected. And once a year at the riverbank, the women of Oju gather. They light candles, beat drums, tell stories, and they say, "Izenwa did not give birth to snakes. She gave birth to memory."